Right, YouTubers, it's been a while. The last little video clip I did was back in March 15th, which I uploaded to YouTube. The Great Operation Photoflash UFO Hoax Part 1B. Well, this is going to be Part 1C. Only a short update. Essentially, with this hoax I've been looking into, along with a few associates and colleagues. This isn't entirely my own operation. It's so extensive and complex. There are others involved, and it's quite a global thing now. It's essentially, I'm just going to give you a quick update on matters, and it's all got quite interesting. If you look at my previous videos on this, you'll get an update from that on what the hoax is all about. But me, Scott Felton, on the case, and it's all getting rather murky, for want of a better description. Basically, I just want to update the fact that I've got some paperwork here. On the 20th of April 2015, I sent a complaint. It's the second complaint I've had to file. I sent it to the Maritime Coastguard Agency in Southampton, as they oversee the Coast Guard, and essentially this hoax surrounds an attempt by the Coast Guard, or rather persons within the Coast Guard, to disseminate false information on official letterheads into the public domain to support a hoax created by an external party. I've mentioned previously there's some clown, disinfo agent called John Williams, who is cryptically referred to as JW by alleged UFO investigator, researcher Russ Kellett, who stands accused of supporting this hoax and inadvertently disseminating it into the UFO community and wider public domain. I've said several times that for those who know Russ, he's not actively involved in this hoax, in the sense that he knows what he's on about or he knows what he's doing, but he wholeheartedly believes that a naval operation took place in the Irish Sea on the night of the 23rd of January 1974, and that resulted in an altercation between a submerged UFO which was flushed out of the sea as part of an operation. There was a shootout. It eventually crashed onto the Berwyn Mountains, and hence an explanation appeared to account for the Berwyn UFO. I've said previously, in 1999 it came about in a published book that the crash scenario was being queried. There was evidence to suggest that there was no crash at all. Certainly by 2003 I personally was aware of there was no crash per se. That doesn't do away with the idea that there wasn't a second object on the mountain which could have crashed, or there was a reason for this UFO being there, or maybe it's watching something, maybe human intervention was going on and a UFO was there studying that, or everyone was studying each other. But what we do know is a UFO came, was detected soon after sort of 9:15 at night, soon after an air tremor, and it stayed a while and it left. So that particular object certainly didn't crash. There was no recovery, as claimed by Russ, and there was no alien bodies recovered. If there were alien bodies recovered, they certainly didn't come from that craft. However, because the hoax was coming under pressure as not being real, because it involved a crash. In order for the hoax to survive, there have to be a crash. So people like Margaret Fry, who was the main investigator of the case at the time, she'd been getting bombarded by this JW character. It's John Williams, so don't let Russ blag you anymore that he has to keep this guy's identity secret. The guy's a disinfo agent. We know where he lives. We don't really know why he's done what he done, but we don't think he was acting alone. There's others behind him. And he tried to sell this story of a crash to Margaret Fry and others who didn't take it on board. They were having none of it. It was full of holes. However, in 1999, the bottom of the pile of people they could contact and try to convince it was real, Russ comes along. They sell him the story. He swallows a hook, line and sinker, and he's promoted it ever since. What he's failed to account for, and what he seems to have ignored, is the fact that in order to accommodate Russ, the story changed. There was no UFO on Berwyn in the Berwyn Mountain range that crashed, because the evidence was stacking up that that particular vehicle was not involved in any crash at all. So anything suggesting a crash immediately comes under suspicion and becomes untenable. So they sold a different story to Russ, and he knows it's different to the original story, but for whatever reason, whatever's going on inside his head, he decides that this has got to be true. In fact, he knows that the story he's got and what he was told was exactly the same story as what was told to people before, except some of the times had changed, some of the locations had changed. It was adapted to suit Russ. Now, if something happens, it either happens or it doesn't. It's a fact or it isn't a fact. You can't change facts just to change the story. If there was a crash, there was a crash. If there was no crash, there was no crash. If there was a crash at A, there was a crash at A. If there was a crash at B, there was a crash at B. You can't just change the story to suit. However, that's what happened with this particular case, and the version of events which Russ Kellett's been promoting for the last 15 years was a variation of the original story. So no matter what happens, no matter what evidence or information comes forward, the story is bogus. It cannot be. But then some people just never worry about letting the truth get in the way of a good story. Anyway, this has been rambling on now and rumbling on, and the Maritime Coastguard Agency are digging their feet in, and using their teeth to bite their tongues. It's a bit frustrating, a bit annoying really, but then they know what they're doing. They're involved in a huge cover-up, I presume, because they're a government agency. This might very well go to the heart of government, I don't know. But certainly through the JW line, it seems quite outrageous that a person, a loner, could come up with such a complex and vast story and then pull in government agencies and people within government agencies to try and prop up that story with bogus information, bogus letters. So this has all been going on. Now, I've had numerous correspondence with the Holyhead Coastguard since last November, when I filed a Freedom of Information request, and for all intents and purposes I still not have had that Freedom of Information request satisfied. That was November 2014. It's been dragging on. in all my requests I always say I don't want any ambiguity, I just want the facts, hand the information over, and of course what do you get back? A load of crap full of ambiguity. And then you have to start nitpicking, and it goes backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. This is all carefully orchestrated by these people, because at the end of the day they don't want to give you the information. They'll have on their website, we want to be helpful, we want to do this for the public, we want to do that for the public, but really at the end of the day you ask the wrong questions and you become a pain in the ass, and they don't like pains in the ass. So amongst all this correspondence, I've got quite graphic and aggressive in my recent letters. And I just would like to point out that I got a bit fed up with it all, and on the 20th of April 2015, which is like 3 months ago now, I wrote to Elaine Adams, the woman in the Maritime Coastguard Agency, Freedom of Information Department, who I've been dealing with. Elaine Adams. There's the letter there. I'll just get that in front of the screen if I can. Yeah, there you go. Right, and there's I'll be publishing all these letters in part 2. I was hoping to have part 2 done by now, but the Maritime Coastguard Agency, MCA, is very, very aware that all this is going to be published, and I don't think they like that at all. But of course, I don't keep secrets. I don't do secrets. I think anyone in the UFO world who keeps secrets about their information is no better. They're no better than the scumbags in government who think it's their duty to deprive British people and other people of their right to information. So on the 20th of April 2015, I sent this letter, and I'll read this out and get an idea of the sort of things I've written, and say this is ongoing since last November. Dear Elaine Adams, original Freedom of Information Act request and subsequent review request. Please regard this letter as a second complaint I feel I now have to make. In a letter to you dated March 30th, I wrote and acknowledged receipt of your much delayed response to a review request of a previous FOI submission. I responded to that immediately with a recorded delivery letter posted on April 1st 2015, and which MCA signed for on April 2nd 2015. I now find that it is the 20th of April 2015 and the letter I sent to you has been totally ignored. I find this as an uncomfortable escalation in the obstruction MCA has placed before me in trying to frustrate my information requests. You have, at least in most cases, acknowledged my letters and then responded later, if painfully slow. I do not believe for one second that the MCA is so backward and disorganised that it can be this inefficient in serving enquirers. I must therefore be left with no alternative but to assume this appalling treatment of me is orchestrated. This latest obstruction cannot be apologised for or excused. It is outrageous. I am therefore, without further ado, filing the second official complaint against what I see as outright and discriminatory obstruction to my ongoing FOI request. It has not gone unnoticed that in all your responses to me you have sidestepped all references to named MCA staff who have actively and with premeditation obstructed my original FOI request, and who I believe have actively hidden or destroyed information and documents which link Holyhead Coastguard Station staff to a fabricated letter which was never filed correctly, yet was wheeled out to fob off enquirers with misleading information whenever the need arose. In my letter dated March 30th, you were asked 11 searching questions about the sudden and miraculous appearance of a log entry, a logbook purporting to have originated in Holyhead Coastguard Station, and that letter's been ignored, and I don't think there is anything you can say now that can justify why it has been ignored. I would like you to immediately respond to my letter of March 30th acknowledging receipt, provide the information requested comprehensively and unambiguously, and to explain why this time it was unanswered after MCA signed for it. In view of your response to my last complaint, which though extensive and explanatory I do not accept, I wish this complaint also to be taken to the next level in MCA in accordance with your complaints procedure. I'll just interject there. I have asked at this point of this second complaint that the complaint ongoing should be moved to the next highest person or department in the complaints procedure. I wish this complaint to be dealt with by someone who is not happy to fall on their sword to defend corrupt colleagues. I have no qualms about stating yet again that in part my FOI and review requests were delayed to buy time for Raymond Carson at Holyhead Coastguard Station to retire, and then you'll all just start bleating that this and that info cannot be found, etc. I will also remind you again that I do not do secrets, and all my correspondence with MCA will be published as part of an ongoing investigation into the fake content of that April 2000 letter and other phony letters on official MCA letterheads prior to it having gone missing and were seemingly never found correctly due to their unofficial status. In summary, please acknowledge my letter of March 30th, which MCA signed for on April 2nd. Please supply the information requested. Please deal with this second complaint and ensure it is now advanced to the next appropriate level in your complaints procedure. Elaine Adams has been asked twice now in this letter to ensure that this complaint is moved on. Your last response was unacceptable. I just do not believe you, and now I've had to file yet another second complaint. This is totally unacceptable, and I would like this debacle sorted ASAP. It is an absolute disgrace. Yours disgusted, Scott L. Felton. Right, that was on April 20th. Pull this letter out here. On April 23rd, Elaine Adams responded, so she'd clearly read this letter. However, she ignored all its contents and sent a letter referring to the various questions I'd asked. She supplied a couple of other bits of information, but all the business about the complaint totally ignored, not acknowledged at all, not even mentioned in the letter. But she did say she was going away for 3 weeks, so by my calculations she was due back in post somewhere around the 18th of May. So you'd think, well, she's back in the office, she's got to catch up, but bear in mind of course that I'd filed a second complaint. There's a complaints procedure and it has to be dealt with within certain time limits, time frames. So really she or anyone even acting on her behalf had no right or authority to delay a complaint, an official complaint. But this wasn't just any complaint. I was escalating this complaint, and they seem to have taken it upon themselves to make sure it wasn't escalated. It didn't get to a higher level. I don't know how corrupt all these people are. I know they're all buddies and they do like to defend their organisation, they do like to defend each other, which they're all very well and good at with public money. We know how these people work. If it was the BBC, you wouldn't even be surprised, because they like defending all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. So on the 23rd of April she sends that letter, says she's going away for 3 weeks, she should be back in post around about 18th of May. So we get to the 16th of June, a month after she was back at work. Not a peep. No acknowledgement of the that letter I sent on the 20th of April. No acknowledgement of it, no reference to the complaint, no indication it was going to be sent anywhere. So on the 16th of June I thought, well, that's enough, and I produced this. I'll get this in front of it. You can see that there, dear sir or madam, blah blah blah, complaint. And I just bypassed the this Elaine Adams and took it straight to the Chief Executive's office, which apparently handles complaints, which should have been handling my complaint, escalated in the 20th of April, but of course it never seemed to reach that office. So I bypassed that. And this was a very, very graphic letter, and I'm going to read that to you. As I say, a complete chronological order, timeline of every letter and piece of correspondence I've had with MCA about this hoax will be published in a YouTube vid and elsewhere in what will become part 2. This is part 1C, just an update. Part 2 hasn't materialised, as I said earlier, because I haven't got the information I'm after, because these are going out of the way to frustrate it. They know, as well as I know, that the letter they've been using to fob people off since April 2000 was a total load of crap. The letter was official, the letter existed, it's all official letterhead of paper. What was bogus, what was fake, was the information in it. They know, and I know, that there was no naval exercise in the Irish Sea on that night. They also know we've got the information to prove it, and partly the reason they are trying not to cooperate now, not that the problem's going to go away, is that they know, we know, there was no naval operation. So they can't really think of an excuse to account for why an employee in the Coast Guard, which the MCA oversees, was able to determine that there was a naval operation that night. Of course there wasn't, it never happened. So 16th of June 2015, Chief Executive, Maritime Coastguard Agency, Bay 3/30, Spring Place, 105 Commercial Road, Southampton, Hampshire, SO15 1EG, that's the postcode. Dear Sir or Madam, formal complaint re exasperation / obstruction with ongoing freedom of information request and complaints. In line with the advised MCA complaints procedure, I am hereby writing to the Chief Executive requesting that my complaint is now dealt with at a higher level, as I have been repeatedly obstructed, frustrated and denied information in relation to an inquiry. I am conducting an inquiry into the existence of a letter allegedly authored by a MCA staff member within the Coast Guard, which has been used to support a government disinformation programme, and which I believe was always a deliberately fabricated letter containing information that had no foundation in truth. I've been dealing with Elaine Adams, who started off quite keen but gradually started to become more uncooperative as time went on, a product I believe of her realising just exactly what I was delving into. I filed an FOI request in early November 2014 and I have still not received the information I seek. I have, however, received a constant stream of excuses and ambiguity to frustrate and delay responses. Not only is this outrageously unacceptable, but in my last correspondence to Elaine Adams dated 20th of April 2015, which was signed for at Southampton, that letter was totally ignored altogether. Not only was the questioning therein ignored via no acknowledgement or response, but I requested also that my ongoing complaint be referred to yourself. This too was seemingly ignored, as no acknowledgement or response to that was sent to me either. As it stands, all communication with Elaine Adams / MCA regarding my ongoing FOI request and complaint has ceased. It is now mid-June 2015. which was, where are we? Well, I've lost my thread now. It is now mid-June 2015, and I fear that had I not written this letter, my contact with MCA on this matter would be quietly forgotten. MCA has displayed nothing but a total unwillingness to be candid and cooperative. From what I have experienced, any claim to the contrary is a myth. The whole process I have endured attempting to glean basic information, which could have been all supplied in just a handful of letters at most, suggests corruption on a large scale. MCA cannot be so incompetent as to be this inefficient. The only logical and reasonable conclusion to draw under the circumstances is that the obstruction I have received is orchestrated, premeditated. I will not be a victim of this, and I think it is an affront to civilization that MCA itself conducts itself in this manner. It is of grave concern to me that MCA is more interested in defending its own image and protecting its staff before the truth. The media is currently awash with allegations of similar behaviour on a plethora of subjects, and amidst this I find MCA engaging in the similar activities. It is a disgrace. I wish this letter to be acknowledged immediately and as soon as possible after it is signed for, proving receipt. Another practice I've had to engage in just to prove receipt of correspondence. Please do not bother to send me any correspondence apologising for any delays. Such words are now worthless. In my eyes, MC has no credibility whatsoever. It is a hive of corruption and criminality, and I have no qualms about using such descriptions. The abuse I have suffered is adequate testimony to my validity in using such words. Yeah, powerful stuff. All I require from MCA, which I have repeatedly asked for and not received, is not nicely worded excuses and ambiguous rubbish to blag me, but a simple, straightforward answers to my questions and access to the documents I have requested and or you purport to have. I seek a comprehensive and honest investigation into my complaint, and I advise you in advance that if I detect even a hint of insincerity, I will regard such as further obstruction. I am prepared to go to the highest authority possible to exhaust my complaint, and I will if forced to. In the interest of honesty too, I think it only fair to advise you that all correspondence between myself and MCA is for public consumption and will be published in due course. I do not do secrets. I will not be terrorised by those wanting to keep secrets or play politics with me. Such activities in the public sector are nothing short of treason. In conclusion, I look forward to your prompt response. Elaine Adams will no doubt be happy to supply you with all the correspondence I've sent and she has sent to me. It is quite a copious amount of mainly wasted ink. I would suggest you obtain a complete copy of all that correspondence, and if required then I will be happy to supply a copy of all mine, just in case any of it you receive internally is missing or altered. In line with previous requests, please ensure that I have to sign for any and all correspondence you post out to me. I am a veteran of FOI requests and know all the tricks to frustrate enquirers. This ongoing debacle is the worst case I've yet experienced from any government agency, and based on current cooperation levels has the potential to be one of the most obstructive FOI requests and complaints yet seen. Yours sincerely and thoroughly disgusted, Scott L. Felton. I sent that on 16th of June. MCA signed for it on the 17th of June, the very next day. And in an outstanding example of speed, that letter was read quite soon in the day on the 17th of June 2015, and this reply here was sent out the same day. There's, I'll get it up there. Dear Mr. Felton, blah blah blah. It's dear Mr. Felton, thank you for your complaint to Sir Alan Massey regarding your freedom of information request. Apparently Sir Alan Massey is like one of the top people, if not the top man, in the Maritime Coastguard Agency. So we'll see how this guy handles this now, and if he's more interested in the truth or he's more interested in trying to play it all down, and oh, and there was mistakes and people didn't understand what you were saying and all this bollocks, because that's what it is, bollocks, if you go along that line. and most of all if they even try to defend the staff for what they've been doing. Anyway, dear Mr. Felton, thank you for your complaint to Sir Alan Massey regarding your freedom of information request. I acknowledge receipt of your letter dated 16th of June 2015, received into this office on 17th of June 2015. Sir Alan will look into this matter and reply in due course. Well, that spooked me a little bit. Reply in due course. Obviously the guy will have to investigate things and whatever. Whether he does or not I don't know, but it certainly doesn't say we'll keep it updated. Nor does it say or suggest any sort of time frame. We'll reply to you in due course. Yours sincerely, Kirsty Garrett, Secretariat and Business Support Coordinator. So Kirsty Garrett wrote a letter, she signed for it in ink, in her own hand, and Sir Alan Massey is going to look at this this complaint, which he should have got, when was it? He should have actually got that complaint on the 20th of April, 21st of April it was signed for. So interesting stuff. But yeah, so a letter dated 17th of June, last correspondence from the Maritime Coastguard Agency, and I've got to sit on this now till they decide to respond. But as they were told in the letter I sent, there's no going back. I'll take this to the highest point I can. I'll try and exhaust it that way. But one thing MCA needs to know is I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to haunt them until I get what I'm looking for. They know that what I'm saying is all true. I can understand their position. They're in a funny position, so they don't really or can't publicly admit it. But I'm not bothered about that. I don't care if heads rolled or whatever. It doesn't bother me at all. People who are involved in this hoax need to be hung out to dry. They should be hung, drawn and quartered. They've engaged, as far as I'm concerned, in a treasonous act against the British people. They've conspired with external parties to fabricate information to support a hoax scenario, to account for why originally there was a flying saucer on the Berwyns. Of course, that flying saucer, that UFO, call it what you will, landed and took off again. So they moved the location of all the information that was originally given to Margaret Fry about these five monkeys, these 5 clowns, these 5 wise men who allegedly found the UFO and saw the recovery operation. Well, of course they couldn't see the recovery operation on the Berwyns because there wasn't one. The thing took off. So they moved what they saw about 4 miles, still along the same route they allegedly took, and a second UFO crashed. Not the first. They're sidestepping that one now. And Russ has taken it on board. He's going around saying, yeah, well, there was a landing now, and he's quietly slid away from the crash scenario. In fact, he's even quietly slid away from the second crash scenario, which he supported, and has changed his tune, and several times now has suggested there was a landing or a crash landing, but anything other than a crash where there's spaceships in bits and there's bodies and there's some live ones and they're whisked off. Because we can't forget, we have to remember that in the first story this UFO crashed onto Berwyn, and forgetting all the hype about it being as big as the Albert Hall, the thing Pat Evans saw, the district nurse who was originally accredited with discovering the UFO, and she was stopped by soldiers and all this sort of stuff. Most of that was just total bollocks. It never happened. A lot of it was disinformation, deliberately seeded into the UFO community to subvert it, tie people up looking at dead ends and all this business. And it's now evolved into a second UFO which crash landed, not crashed into bits, crash landed on the side of a road near the village of Llanderfel, which is a few miles from Llandrillo, and some aliens were recovered, dead and alive, and he's even gone so far, Russ, to say that humans, soldiers, got into this flying saucer, managed to get it off the floor, and it went onto the back of a flatbed lorry. Of course, I've tracked down the field where this all meant to happen. You can't even get a lorry into the field. You never could get a lorry into the field, and you certainly couldn't get into the field and conduct a recovery operation 500 yards from a village and no one notices it, aside a main road. And also we forgot the bit about where the people were walking backwards and forwards from the pub to the village, back and forth between the pub and the village, and he said there was roadblocks and things like that, and people were getting told to sod off and by the army and all this, and there was swarms of soldiers. All this information he got via anonymous sources, and he swallowed it. The anonymous sources simply backed up what the MCA had put in their letter, which he was originally told by John Williams, and all these snippets of information all came together. I mean, he possesses a piece of metal which he claims came from the recovery operation, but again the story's changed somewhere, and it was a piece of metal that was ripped off the spaceship over Capel when it was struck by missiles from a pursuing jet, things like that. His story's changed quite a bit over the years to suit new challenges to the information he had. As new information comes forward, he's evolved and adapted the story, but of course you can't do that with facts. They either are or they are not. So we await what Sir Alan Massey has got to say. So essentially that concludes my little update there. I hope you'll bear with me. It is a bit tedious, but we're going to get to the bottom of this, and Russ Kellett at the end of the day can protest all he wants, but facts are facts, and it is a fact now that the information he's been spreading for the last 15 years is a total load of rubbish. I know it, the Maritime Coastguard Agency know it. They're just in a dilemma in how to extricate themselves from the mess that they've got themselves in. So we'll see, but I certainly won't be helping the MCA. There'll be a bit more tolerance that they come clean in the first place, even a little bit more than they have done. But no, it's a case of who does Scott think he is, sticking his nose into our business. He's a trouble causer, he's embarrassing us, going to cause us inconvenience, and besmirch the good name of the MCA. Well, the MCA hasn't got a good name. All this ongoing debacle, it's proof enough that they haven't been honest from the outset. If they'd been honest from the outset, I wouldn't even have to have supplied, requested a review request. All the information would have been supplied with the original FOI request in November. I should have had it all for Christmas, and instead 7 months on we're still going on about it. So thanks for watching, and thanks to the MCA for dragging this out for so long, and hopefully all your misdeeds will be published in due course. Have a good day.